to the Your Success Personally podcast with your host, yours truly, Vanessa G, where we will talk about success as defined by you. Here, we don't look at the playbook of others to bring you down. Instead, we are going to cover topics that pertain to how you, as an individual, can reach your goals and potential. Don't look at others to define your success. You create it. Your rules, your way, and how you get there. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Your Success Personally podcast with your host, yours truly, Vanessa G. Today, I want to talk a little bit about knowing your worth. Now, what images come to mind when you hear someone tell you to know your worth? For me, one of the things I think about when I think of self-worth and knowing your worth is one of my favorite songs from Alicia Keys, A Woman's Worth. Anybody out there remember that? Well, it's a song that I love and I totally agree with the lyrics. But what about you? Do you know your worth? From a spiritual perspective, the Bible speaks of our being more valuable than the grass and God knowing us while we were still in the womb. You may say that we don't pay for ourselves, but I would say that your parents paid a high cost for you to be brought into the world at a cost that far expands that of the hospital bills. For those of us who did have parents or guardians who loved and cared for us, our parents paid with time, attention, care, and love. Our parents looked out for our physical, environmental, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial needs for roughly 18 to 22 years of our lives. Some of what your parents did can be calculated numerically, but for the other stuff, we will never know the cost of what it took to raise you and mold you into who you are today. Some would say your worth is priceless. And what you know about your worth comes back to your value of yourself. In other words, my friends, your self-esteem. Self-worth is at the core of our very selves. Our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are intimately tied into how we view our worthiness and value ourselves as human beings. How much do you appreciate and like yourself? It involves a variety of beliefs about yourself, such as the appraisal of your own appearance, beliefs, emotions, and behaviors. I did some Googling, and here's one definition of self-worth that stood out for me. It said self-worth is the opinion you have about yourself and the value you place on yourself. An example of self-worth is your belief that you are a good person who deserves good things, or your belief that you are a bad person who deserves bad things. Some would say a person's worth is determined by his or her character. In the true sense of the term, the values you hold, the perceptions you develop, the respect you gain, and above all, your sensitivity to others' feelings, emotions, attitudes, and beliefs. Each of these things contributes towards your self-worth? How do I get to know, or how do others get to know your self-worth? That's the question. Well, guess what? It comes back to you. How you allow other people to treat you, your energy, your confidence, and attitude is the currency that others will respond to when they meet you. In any given situation, knowing your value means feeling that you are an equal with anyone you interact with, whether it be in work settings, with clients, or with your boss or colleagues, or in your personal life via romantic partners, friends, or family. I want to encourage you today to take the restraints and the limits off of what you believe your value to be, because I can guarantee you it's a lot more than you give yourself credit for. To recognize your self-worth, remind yourself, one, that you don't have to please other people. You don't have to please other people. You don't have to do anything extra to be worthy. Did you know that? Not a darn else thing. Every human being has intrinsic worth. And yes, guess what? Even people we don't like, who don't like us, and those who don't agree with us. Every human being has value. And here's me getting up on my soapbox. This is why the Black Lives Matter movement is important. This is why it exists, because there are far too many people who still have a disregard for African American lives here in the United States. African Americans, whether law-abiding or suspects in a crime, their lives have intrinsic value and are worthy, just like any other person of a different persuasion. They don't have to be anything extra or above and beyond to have value. Do we understand each other? That's all of us. So, you know what? I'm off my soapbox. I digress. But guess what? This is my podcast, and, it's so important to make mention. So, and I get to do that. I get to venture off a little bit. But the point is that you don't have to please other people to be worthy. You already have intrinsic value. Number 2, you alone control how you feel about yourself. Right? So, no matter what people do or say, and regardless of what happens outside of you, it's up to you to control the narrative about yourself. Other than your parents, who knows you better than you? And this is very important. Don't let anybody else tell you how you are or assign a value to you. You alone control how you feel about yourself. That is not something from outside. That's something that's developed from within you. So what can you do? Well, I'm going to tell you this straight up, because some people won't tell you the truth. Everybody from time to time has issues of self-worth. Not everyone feels worthy all the time and in every situation. That's just a fact of life. So don't look at anybody else and thinking, oh, they're the best. They're on top. They may be pretending, right? Or they may be existing, but you don't know what's going on inside them. They may feel as worthless as dirt on the inside. Just understand that sometimes, even when you have a head knowledge of your worth, sometimes in your heart, it's just not there. For whatever reason, you may just be having a bad day, or maybe you had a fail in life and you're trying to recover, but in that moment, you feel a little less. But at the end of the day, you control how you feel and what you believe yourself to be worthy. So, getting back, what can you do? Well, exhibit or build a positive self-esteem. And that means you believe in and like yourself. Self-esteem can be low or high, not necessarily dependent on confidence, because confidence can be situational. So what that means is that you can be confident about work that you perform, confident in the work that you deliver, and your sense of professionalism per se, but not think much of yourself or do not place a high value in you as a person. It means that you are comfortable with who you are, whether it be your weight, your height, and everything that makes and represents you. I think that without positive self-esteem, it would be difficult to know your value. Another thing you can do is you need to recognize the difference you make in the world. When you know your value, you will confidently approach a negotiation if you're in a business with the belief in your knowledge and skills and abilities, and the difference that you can make in the world. But make no mistake, whether in business or even in just regular life, we all here are so individual that we do make impact in our lives. And we don't have to be engaged in business. We just have to be engaged in living. Recognize the difference you make in the world. Another thing you can do, see yourself as a part of the level playing field. See yourself as a peer. In any given situation, knowing your value means feeling that you're equal with anyone you interact with, right? So, listen, I live in the United States. Whether it's said or not, there is a class system in place. There are people who are at the very top, in terms of wealth, and there are people at the very bottom, and then there are layers in between, right? But with that said, money doesn't make the person. So I could be at the poverty level, but I'm still intrinsically valuable as someone who is of the stature of Bill Gates or Zuckerberg, right? I'm not less of a person because I don't make the same money that they do. They're not better. At the same time, they're not necessarily worse either. You are equal with whoever you interact with, whether it be at work with clients, your boss, with your coworkers, or your friends. You don't have to feel like you're less, nor do you feel privileged to be with someone or to work in a particular type of job just for that sake, right? It can be a privilege to work at a great job or something like that. But what I'm talking about is getting your intrinsic internal value from that particular activity. Okay? When you see yourself as a peer, you have a personal sense of value and deservedness, and you assert yourself as an equal in your personal and business relationships. You are worthy no matter what your occupation is. You're worthy no matter who you know. Another thing you can do, command the pay that your work is worth, right? So, I do want to speak to people in business, to working people, to entrepreneurs. Sometimes out of fear of losing business, or even in the desire to get more business or to go up the career ladder, sometimes we will not allow ourselves to be paid for the services that we render. And when I say that, I'm talking about getting undercharging for our services. And guess what? You know the type of work you bring to the table. You set your value. And those who can afford to pay for your services or your product will buy them. People who choose not to invest in you and what you have to offer, they do you the favor of not wasting your time. Okay? They're not the client. They're not the consumer that you want. It's nothing good or bad. You know what your value is and what you have to offer. And therefore, you should feel confident in your pricing, in, charging whatever it is for what you do. Another thing you should do is to be clear about your values. Knowing your worth means you know your boundaries. You're clear about what is acceptable behavior, how you like to be treated and spoken to, and you have the courage to speak out when necessary. Remember, you don't need external validation to prove your value. Instead, you have an internal compass of what's right and wrong. So if you know you're feeling some kind of way when a person speaks to you disrespectfully, you do have the worth to say, hey, that's not cool. You need to stop that. You don't have to get into a big fight, but you should, for your own sake, speak up. Another thing you can do, and listen, I don't say that these things are easy, especially if you've had a history of not knowing your worth or attributing a lower value to yourself in the past. But what better time than today to start changing these thoughts and really establishing new habits and new way of thinking about yourself, right? And so with that said, believe that you are good enough. You believe that you have sufficient experience and have qualifications and testimonials to back them up as it pertains to you being good enough at work. But you don't need anything else as a person to prove your value. We get a lot of cues from the media and from the world. And honestly, I don't even know who makes up these rules that tend to separate, that tend to make people feel less. I don't know, but we and anybody who may have questions about their value, they need to really have a discerning ear and a discerning spirit as to what you're taking in from the outside, right? So I'll say this, for example, in education, You don't need another certification, course, degree, or further experience for validation before you feel good enough, right? So what I'm saying is that some people haven't gotten a degree. Some people maybe only have done high school. Some people haven't finished high school. Now, am I saying you don't need those things in life? Well, it depends. Certain jobs you do. You need advanced degrees. You need advanced certifications for certain things. So please hear me when I say that we're not talking about that. If a particular job or vocation requires X amount of education, past high school, past college, then that's what you have to do to get that job. However, the number of degrees, certifications, type of job does not dictate your intrinsic value. It doesn't make you more valuable. It can make you more qualified for a job, but it doesn't add or take away from who you are if you don't have it, right? You simply are. And this extends into your personal life as well. We need to understand that everyone is a work in progress and has something that can be improved upon. But at the same time, even in relationships, you are already your best authentic self. What am I trying to say? So, of course, no one is perfect. There isn't enough photo editing or makeup or clothes that could make someone perfect. However, seeing the person that you are and understanding the value that you have, that is already enough. In fact, it's more than enough. So if, as we talk about, being personal and talking about relationship, if a person or a friend or a romantic interest isn't feeling you as you are, no worries. That means that they aren't for you. And in time, perhaps the right one will come along. You are good for any friend or romantic involvement. So I hope that encourages someone today. Some of these indicators may resonate with you and others may not, but in my view, being clear about your value leads to greater sense of clarity and confidence about who you are and what you stand for. This is in your personal life as well as business. Again, I'm separating, but really, our lives, most people's lives, business, working is a big thing. And then, of course, we have a personal self that doesn't spend time at work, right? But it all is the same. You still have to have value in both areas. And so when I speak of the confidence will be reflected in how you interact with other people. People who are confident and believe in themselves, they stand out. So maybe do a little self-assessment. Write down how many ways you value yourself. Do you even think about valuing yourself? Maybe for some people, that's, they already know, they already value, okay. So then this conversation is not for you today. Maybe the next one will be. But for those who sometimes hadn't thought about it or whatever, do this exercise when you get an opportunity. Write down how many ways you value yourself and be honest about it. Because sometimes we're not even being self-aware and not even realizing that we're not valuing ourselves in the way that we should. From that list, select an area where you may not feel valued and how you would like that to change. The purpose of this is to encourage you to be more self-aware and recognize the qualities that lie within you and to become aware of those things that you do need to work on. I read somewhere that by understanding our own value, we are able to add value to what we do and service to others. Remind yourself every day that you are worthy and have value. And I'll tell you, it starts when we are young. A healthy self-esteem for personal development that will lead eventually to professional development begins in our youth, since it is in that time that our identity is created, and based a lot, very heavily on our self-worth. And it can be a determinant for future professional success. I think whether you are young or a little older, if you do not realize your self-worth and appreciate the good qualities that you possess, you will not be able to aspire for better in your life. And, this is just one topic or one aspect of the topic of personal success that excites me to talk about, because I don't know that we talk about it, and I think many people are in such are so focused on trying to appear the best that they're not even really taking time to see if they feel the best about themselves. So here's the question. Where are you in knowing your worth? In your personal life, are you being treated in a way where your friends value who you are? On your jobs, are you being compensated appropriately for the work that you do? Perhaps even in comparison to others who do the same work as you. And here I go, right? I'm getting in your business now. What about your romantic relationships? Are you being honored and cherished for what you bring to that relationship? Or do you find that your relationships tend to be a bit lopsided as, that partner, because you're not valuing yourself, your partner doesn't know how to value you either? Listen, know your worth. And if you don't know, don't you think it's time to find out? It's just something to think about. Until next time, remember your success begins with you. Take real good self-care. Bye-bye. So, we've come to the end of our time together today. I hope our discussion was helpful to you. I wish you positive vibes and encourage you to do you as you climb the ladder of success. If you are feeling this episode, leave a comment. And if you are really loving this, please subscribe and join the success journey. For more encouragement along the way, follow me on Instagram or Twitter at YourSuccessPersonally. And continue to listen wherever podcasts can be found. And remember, your success by your rules. Bye-bye.